Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So if you had a somewhat typical childhood for a Googler or anyone else in this industry, you probably spent a good deal of that childhood hunched over a small computer, making it emanate various strange beeping sounds to the great consternation of your parents. And if you remember that era of your life fairly well, you probably remember that some of those games had more sheep than usual. And that's the fault of one man who is standing immediately to my left, and it's my great pleasure to introduce him, a man who has been an independent game developer for longer, I think, than I've been alive, and is still going strong and has a wonderful piece of work in progress to show us. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jeff Minter.
Okay. Cheers. Right, so am I on? You can all hear me correctly? Good. Right, I've been producing games for, well, far too long, really. It makes me feel really old if I think about how long I've been doing it. I actually found the other day, I was going through some old tapes down at my mum's place, and I found an old cassette tape for the Commodore PET. And I thought, there is no way on earth that I'd ever be able to retrieve anything off that. But I took it home, and with a little bit of fiddling about, I actually managed to get something back from one of my first ever Commodore PET games. I never thought I'd ever see it again in my life. This was written in the 70s, for God's sake. I mean, it was 1979. It's pretty rubbish, but I'll open with it just because it's curious to see something from so long ago. Oh, I remember that sign. Eee, Commodore Basic. Right, now I think I can make this work if I press, that's run stop. That's the length, there we go. Working. Shift is fine, I think. Yes. Oh, I'm rubbish at it. Mind, it's a pretty rubbish game, to be honest with you, and it's not exactly easy to play. But this was all hand assembled in 6502 assembler in like half an hour a day. That was all we were allowed at college. We had one Commodore PET in college. I haven't scored any points at all. Look, I'm crap at it. But no, I mean, and also in this game, I mean, this was back in the days. Nobody had ever really heard of programming video games. I mean, you had arcade games, which people knew about, Space Invaders and Asteroids and that kind of thing. In the home, you had things like Pong and the VCS, but the very idea that anybody could sit down and actually create their own games was just alien. And at college, we had one Commodore PET between the whole college, and I think there are only about 4 geeks in the whole college who spent all their time in the computer room making these weird little games. And we never thought for an instant that there would ever be a market for this stuff. It was just something which we did. Anyway, I left college, and then I went to university, and then I was very bored at university because I was there on a maths and physics course, and I really wasn't interested in maths and physics. I was interested in playing with computers. So in due course, I got kicked out. And after I got kicked out, I was then supposed to be going back to a polytechnic, and I spent 3 months there, and then I got quite seriously ill. And while I was ill, I thought, sod it, I'm going to start making games, because it just so happened that in the intervening time, Uncle Clive had brought out the ZX80 and the ZX81, and Commodore brought over the VIC-20, and so this arcane stuff, which we'd been doing in college, just the 4 of us, suddenly started opening up, and I wondered whether, given that I couldn't really do anything else being as I was ill, whether I could actually write some games and see if I could sell them. And in due course, we did sell a few. And probably the first that anybody will have heard of me in North America is with this stuff. Oh, I've got my joystick plugged in, yes, I believe I have. Let's pop that in there. This was a game called Gridrunner, which was released over here by an outfit called Human Engineered Software. And if I have a quick play, you can see what it's like. As you can see, it's based on Centipede. But on Centipede, I liked Centipede. I think at the time I wrote this, I'd only ever played Centipede about twice, but I liked it. But what I didn't like about it was a bit girly. It was all a bit namby-pamby with mushrooms and flies and things like that. I wanted something a bit more hard-edged, so I made Gridrunner, and it's a bit more challenging than pure Centipede because you've got that thing which goes on and zaps you, which is a complete bastard. But this actually did quite well. I mean, it looks crude, but at the time, we must understand, this was the early days of video games, and most things were rubbish. And certainly some of the things they were getting away with selling were absolutely dreadful. So even though this is pretty poor looking, it actually played fairly well, and so it did pretty good. And after that, we had, this was the sequel to Gridrunner, which came out probably about 6 months later. And it's called Attack of the Mutant Camels. I'll just show you a little bit, although it's very similar to Gridrunner. So it does have more levels. As you go on later on, there are actual camels in it and lots of different things, but it's got a quick demo. It's a bit more smooth, a bit more fluid, a bit nicer to play. And this again did fairly well. I have actually neglected to show you the first game which I did for human engineered software, which was sold on the Vic, because it's absolutely dreadful. It was a Defender clone and it was horrid. The ship was about the size of a bus. Terrible, terrible thing. Now that was Attack of the Mutant Camels over here in America, but back in Europe, Attack of the Mutant Camels was something entirely different. And I can show it to you if I find the right folder, which is there. Now this was Attack of the Mutant Camels. Because Attack of the Mutant Camels has to have whacking great camels in, really, doesn't it? You need giant camels. Whoops. It's very twitchy, very hard to play. I'm showing you the 8-bit Atari version because although the original version was a Commodore 64 version, the camel in the Commodore 64 version looked like two fat men in a pantomime camel suit made out of Lego. So, for the sake of my vanity, I'm showing you the slightly better looking version. Whoops. Notoriously difficult to play. Come on, I'm going to kill this camel. Come on, camel. Come on, die. Ah! If I ram you enough times, you'll die. I'll die. Maybe I'll die instead. That'll work. I'll cut one more go. Ah! I blame the joystick. I am sucking quite spectacularly. There, I've lost. Anyway, you may notice a striking resemblance to an Atari VCS game by Parker Brothers that was called Empire Strikes Back. And it had the walkers out of Star Wars in very much a similar scenario to that, marching towards your base and you had to fly around and shoot them. And I hadn't really thought of copying that game, really, but then there was this magazine in the UK called Computer and Video Games, and I was flicking through that one day, and they reviewed this Parker Brothers Empire Strikes Back game, and they described the walkers as giant mechanical camels. And I went, I do like the idea of that. And I thought it would be much better, much more fun to do it with giant camels. However, I actually really like camels. So, you know, this game, although it was quite nice, I didn't really like the idea that you were killing these camels. So I made up this convoluted story whereby the camels had actually been abducted by aliens and reprogrammed and made to fight against their will. And eventually they rebelled, and thus was born this. Revenge of the Mutant Camels. This time the camels are the good guys. Then you get to take over and fight against all manner of strange things, like birds and telephone kiosks and old boots and all sorts of just odd stuff. It may look a bit rubbish, but for its time, when it came out, this was pretty good on the Commodore 64, and it actually did very well in Europe. Nobody's ever heard of it over here, unfortunately, because unfortunately human-engineered software didn't really get into the whole beastie game thing that I got into, and so they refused to distribute my stuff in the US. But this is very fondly remembered amongst British people of a certain age. Having done Revenge of the Mutant Camels, I got into my stride, and just about every game I did following that was full of beasties. As for example, this one. This is Sheep in Space, which I do believe is the first game ever to feature an interstellar space sheep. And it's vaguely Defendery, I suppose, but it takes things a little bit further by having two planet surfaces, and your little sheep can fly around between them, killing the bad guys. And you can swoop down over a surface and try and kill the enemies that are down there. You see the sheep's little legs point down, and as you get hit, your sheep gets hungry. And if sheep gets too hungry, then you need to look for a field. Oh, let's kill that guy. Oh, missed the trick. Oh, there's a field. So if you land in the field, then your sheep eats. And that will replenish his shield. But you must take care, because if you let your sheep overeat, overeating is never good, even for sheepies. If you let your sheep overeat, then it explodes. And this was followed by all manner of games, including the incredibly stupidly named Metagalactic Llamas Battle at the Edge of Time, which I shan't trouble you with at the moment. But around the same time, I started to develop another thing apart from games. I had a fascination ever since I was 11 years old with the music of Pink Floyd, and particularly the light shows which they put on with their live shows. Ever since I started listening to Pink Floyd, whenever I listened to it in a dark room, I would always visualise shapes and geometric things in my head that went to the music. And I always thought that was such a good idea, this idea of like a colour synthesizer to accompany music. And one day I hoped somebody would build one, and then I'd buy one and use it. Anyway, I've been working on games for a couple of years, and I thought, well, actually, I could start using the same technology I'm using for games to start experimenting with that kind of idea myself. And I came up with this extraordinarily simple little program called Psychedelia. And then all this was a little cursor you move around in the joystick, and then when you press the button and hold it down, you get patterns that follow the cursor and decay nicely, and you can change the symmetry of them. Various patterns have different colours. This green one was always a favourite of mine, when it elongates and stretches. And it doesn't look like much on its own, but if you imagine sitting in an early 80s bedroom, listening to some nice Pink Floyd, perhaps having smoked a recreational cigarette with your mates, then this was actually rather good fun, and we really enjoyed it. And it was funny, because when it got reviewed, people either really got what I was trying to do, really understood the whole concept behind it, or they just thought I was absolutely stupid. And so I had both the best and worst reviews of my life for this. I had one guy reviewed it on the Spectrum and just dismissed it as a load of absolute hippie nonsense. This other guy, I think it was from some music magazine, and he was a bit of an old hippie himself, said he found mere words too cumbersome to describe the brilliance of it. And it was funny. But it was the start of something. I mean, ever since 1984, I've been developing this idea. The next stage to which we took it was to implement it on the 8-bit Atari, which had a much nicer set of display modes. Where are we? Atari 8-bit's up there. There we go. And we called it Colour Space on there. And let's turn off auto mode. With the Atari, you had this lovely display list architecture where you could construct these curved type screens. And also you had a much richer colour palette than most of the other 8-bit machines. It was really a very nice machine. I did like the old Atari. And we developed this further to the Atari ST, and it kept ticking along. But probably the next time anybody here may have heard of me would be with, if I get rid of this. Where are we? Here we go. Atari ST, bless it. And this little thing. Oops, I'm in the middle of a level here. Oh, we need to get that umbrella. This is Llamatron, and it's based on Robotron. I'm a great fan of Eugene Jarvis' work. But the thing about Robotron is that it's really, really hard to play. It basically will eat your lunch in about 2 seconds flat. And I wanted to make something that was actually a bit more relaxed than that, where you could settle in and have a bit more of a longer game. And so I came up with Llamatron, ended up being, although it superficially looks like Robotron except with stupid graphics, it actually is a bit more deep and a bit more involved. You've got power-ups, you've got beasties to rescue. I'll start again from the beginning in a sec. Okay, here we go. Now this game, it's tremendously fun to play. I mean, I thoroughly recommend, if you haven't seen it before, you should get hold of a copy on the Steam emulator and play it, because if you like this kind of Robotron game, then this is just an excellent kind of, well, if you get that power up, all the beasties run towards you and love you. Kill Zippy the Pinhead. And the pace on this is a lot more gentle than in Robotron. You can actually play this for half an hour and just have fun. And you've got power-ups and smart bombs and all kinds of stuff which you didn't have in Robotron. And the nice thing about this game was that I made this at a time when Llamasoft was having increasing difficulty getting distribution back home. The video game business was changing from something which somebody like me could successfully participate in into the multi-billion-dollar business that it is today. Let's turn that off. Oh, I've got to go. Time to get my cursor out. Move. No, and at that time in the UK, nobody really heard of shareware. And so I decided to release that game as shareware. I'd been around a couple of software houses with it, and they just said, no, piss off, it's not really what we want. And I remember having to argue with my parents for days about the whole idea of shareware, because this was like real shareware. It wasn't like what they call shareware today, which is crippleware. This was real shareware, where basically we put the full game out and just said to people, look, if you like it, send us a $5. And we didn't really expect to get as huge a response. We did. Well, obviously, I hoped I'd get some response, but the response was overwhelming. We got thousands and thousands and thousands of responses from people. And not only did they pay £5, but they just, all of them sent letters just saying how nice it was that we trusted them to have this game and to pay for it if they liked it. And that really rescued Llamasoft back then. It was quite a moving experience, because I looked like I was being shut out by the industry, and then I was kind of rescued by the people, which was absolutely superb. And that kept me going, oh, piss off, Dell support. Stupid thing. Anyway, I hate it when you buy something from Dell, because they leave all these little bits of crap all over your laptop. Anyway, so after I'd done Llamatron, Atari started to keep their eye on me, and that was when we ended up doing something which probably is the thing which most people would remember me for. If I can just get to it. Where is it? There it is. Just need to load up the ROM file. If you don't have this emulator, by the way, you should really pick it up. If you like your T2K, this is the boy. Play this with the. Now, I'd always loved Tempest. I mean, Tempest, the arcade game, had always appealed to me because there was something about those arcade games, and particularly the vector games, which I particularly admired. Just the clean, abstract nature of the graphics. I mean, with Tempest, because everything was just geometry, there wasn't really the idea that it was trying to be anything. It just existed in its own little abstract world, and I loved that passionately about it. I mean, to me, it stood out more than any other video game because of that. And so when the opportunity came up to work on the Jaguar, they said, you know, here's a list of arcade games. We were at a DevCon, and everybody had to put their hand up for a game they wanted to do. And when it came to Tempest, I was like, oh, me. Let me do that. And it was a bit scary, because at that point, on everything I'd done before had always been like tile and sprite based, and so I hadn't actually had to do any maths. And moving on to the Jaguar, it was the first time I'd ever actually put my hands on a polygon, and so I had to learn and dust the maths books off at least enough to get this thing to work. But it proved to be one of those things that was more daunting to think about than actually was to do. And once you got your head into it, it was good fun. But this was where I more or less started the process, which I think is pretty much my path now, my way of doing things. I wanted to combine the kind of abstract graphics that I was having in those graphics toys that I showed you, the psychedelia, with game stuff. And with a game like Tempest, because it is so abstract, you can start to do that, and so that's what we did with Tempest. I'll play it here, you can see. To a decent level to start. And also the music on this game was fantastic. I mean, really, it wasn't just the game that was good, it was the way everything fit together, and the audio on this game is just stunningly good. So we kind of updated Tempest for what was then the modern day, and it seemed to do quite well, despite the fact that Atari apparently didn't really think much of it at first. I remember I went to the launch party of the Jaguar in New York, and the guy who designed the Jaguar actually made a point of taking me off to one side and telling me that he thought Tempest 2000 was absolutely rubbish, that it didn't use the machine well at all, that Atari didn't think anything of it at all, though it wasn't one of their prestige launch titles like Trevor McFur in the Crescent Galaxy. Oh no. And so I came away from that rather disheartened. And anyway, I've still carried on work on it and finished it off. And then came out to Atari for final test, came out to Sunnyvale. And just as I arrived for final test, some of the guys were getting back from Winter CES, and they all started coming up to me and saying, you know, well done. I'm like, well done for what? And apparently they'd taken this thing to CES, and it had been given an award for one of the best games at CES. So I'm like, way, excellent. And completely unexpected. And then it went out there, and it did fairly well. And I had the opportunity some years later of being able to sit in a bar with that guy who designed the Jaguar, who told me it was crap, and make him eat his words. That was most fun. And yeah, my time at Atari was good. Another thing I did while I was there was further develop the whole idea of the abstract graphical toy to play with music. And this is what we made. Let's load that. And I need to attach one of those. Don't rename it, attach it. There we go. Then I need to press that to close the lid. Then I need to press something here until all that disappears. Then I need to press that. There we are, now we're in business. Now this really was the first of the visualizers. This was the first time we'd actually had the ability to make one of these graphics toys actually listen to the music and respond accordingly. And this is pretty much the ancestor of all the ones which you now see on Windows Media Player and iTunes and that kind of thing. They're always basically the same set of techniques which this introduced. But one thing we always had on this, which a lot of people never had on theirs, is they were always interactive. You could always pick up the joystick and control them, because I always liked the idea of it being not just an entirely passive thing, but also something which you could interact with and play a bit like an instrument. And it was fun. Unfortunately, the Atari Jaguar CD-ROM sold to about 3 people, so not many people actually had the chance to play with this. But I know a lot of the other visualizer guys did start out with this stuff, because I had a couple of them come up to me at shows and said, you know, did I mind that they'd nicked all my techniques? I said, no, go ahead. But that's fun, and if you play with this today, we'll play with it stands up even to some of the modern stuff. Anyway, after that, unfortunately, my time at Atari ended. When I did Tempest and I did the VLM, I'd been freelance. I'd been still Llamasoft, and after that, I decided to join Atari, and that was not a good move. Not just because of what happened to Atari, but personally not for me. I don't make a very good employee, and also I think Atari just thought that they could lean on me a bit too hard when I was in-house, because after I'd done Tempest and the VLM, they gave me Defender 2000. Now that should have been an absolute joy, but basically I wanted to do it one way, and my producer wanted me to do it another way. I wanted to do it with like small graphics and the same kind of abstract, trippy stuff you see in the light synths, basically in the same style I was doing Tempest. And my producer wanted huge graphics and massive sprites because they were going to put it on CD-ROM, and so I had to have all this parallax scrolling. And I went, I don't really like doing it that way, but they made me. And they hooked me up with a bunch of this art outfit in San Jose who were supposed to be doing all the graphics for it. I remember saying to these people, look, whatever you do, you know, if you're going to design the graphics for my game, whatever you do, don't make it so that you have the backgrounds and then you can't see the enemies in front of the backgrounds, because that really ruins the game. So of course, what did they do? Always, you couldn't see the bleeding enemies against the background. So I didn't really have the freedom to do what I would have liked to have done. And although Defender 2000's okay, it's not one of my best works, I have to say. I just think that my philosophy in design is a bit, it's non-compliant with being employed, really. I think that's why I have to be freelance. I do suck at doing conventional design. This whole idea that you have to sit down, design the game, write the whole document describing the game, give that to your publisher who then approves it, and then they have to go back to the programmers who make it exactly as it said on the bit of paper. It doesn't work like that. I mean, to me, a game is a living thing which takes shape as you form it. I mean, I start out with a kind of idea where I want to go, and I kind of try and build the tools which do that. And then as I'm doing that, you know, something may turn out good, something may turn out bad. I mean, it happened recently with Space Giraffe. I had this one technique which had been in the design for a long time, and it sounded good when I first thought of it, and it seemed okay when I first started implementing it, and it seemed okay when I put it into a tutorial level. But then when I actually started building actual game levels, it sucked. It was really bad. And so I needed to chuck it out. So I just thought, all right, fair enough, chuck it away. And other things will also emerge as you're playing around with technology. You may develop some new technique, and you may wish to change the design and say, actually, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to do this. And I think if you try and hold yourself to a design that's graven in stone before you set out, then you end up with a compromise at the end of the day, because the thing isn't allowed to evolve properly. I need my game to evolve. And so quite often what I end up with is almost not at all like what I set out immediately, or what I started out saying I was going to do. For example, to get Space Giraffe through the approval process, just to begin at Microsoft, you have to submit a document describing like 30 seconds of gameplay or whatever, 5 minutes of game, I can't remember what it was. So I just made it the hell up. I couldn't say what it's going to be like in a year's time, so I just kind of made it up and said, yeah, it's going to be really bright, it's going to be really cool, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I mean, it worked, but I mean, I can't work that way. I simply can't. And another thing I think that is important to me, and it's just how I work now, and I think makes it easier for me to survive as an indie, is the fact that I work entirely in the abstract. I'm really into this idea of bringing together the whole audio reactive light synthesizer stuff and the video game stuff. And in doing that, I make a different kind of game. I'm not making a game where I'm trying to tell a story. I'm not making a game where I'm trying to simulate anything or make anything realistic. What I'm actually doing, and when I design a game, I'm trying to get to a feeling. I'm trying to get to the pure essence of video game. It doesn't matter what the graphics are saying, as long as what they're saying is nice. It doesn't matter what the audio is doing as long as it fits in with what the graphics are doing. I'm trying to make a feedback loop that includes you and the graphics and the audio and everything, and just gives you that experience of getting into the zone. I'm not a storyteller, and I think for me that's quite good, because it means, yeah, if you're telling stories or being realistic, and you need hordes of art people to, design characters, and you've got to do dialogue, and you've got to do all this stuff, which takes a lot of resources, and it soon gets beyond the scale, something which like 2 guys can do. Llamasoft has doubled in size recently. We're 2 guys now instead of just 1. And so I'm now pursuing this work entirely in the abstract, and it's really good for me because it means I can use my light synthesizer tools to actually create the in-game environment and all the stuff that happens in the game. The light synth work eventually came to fruition. I don't know if any of you have got the Xbox 360 and have ever used the music visualizer thing on it. That thing is our design. It's an engine called Neon. And basically, Neon is in the Xbox. Neon is purely a visualizer. Well, it's an interactive visualizer. Up to 4 people can use it together, as well as being driven by the music. But I always wanted to use it as well as the basis for a game. And so now we're moving on to, well, let's change here. Space Giraffe. Now, Space Giraffe is the first game that was built entirely on the Neon engine. And basically, I wanted to produce a game which would appeal to people who remember Tempest 2000. However, I don't want it to just be another version of Tempest, for various reasons. I mean, I've done Tempest 2000, I did Tempest 3000 on a little-known system called the Neon, which I'm sure most of you are blissfully unaware of. And basically, there's a problem with doing. I don't want to be tied to the same game. Tempest is based on an elegant but very, very simple design, and much in the same way as Llamatron started out being like Robotron, but then expanded out into all kinds of different directions, it became much more fun, I think, in the process. I wanted to do the same thing and basically start out from the starting point of Tempest 2000, but move away into its own direction. So at the end of this, when I do a sequel to this, it won't be Tempest blah blah, it'll be a sequel to Space Giraffe. It'll be my own thing, as opposed to being hooked to Dave Toyer's old game for the end of time. I mean, bless him, I love that game, but it's time to move on. So it's time for the Giraffe. And anyway, I'll show it to you. And I'm sure when you first see it, oh, that's the wrong controller. That's the right controller. I can actually come around this side to play it. Yesterday, I'm back to the screen. Right, I'm sure when you first see it, you will think, hey, it's Tempest. And indeed, you can play it like Tempest. But I'll show you what happens if you play it like Tempest, if you play it like Space Giraffe. Right, I'll demonstrate on level 2. I'll play level 2 as if I was playing Tempest. Okay, so Tempest, I'm shooty, shoot everything before it gets to the top. Because in Tempest, if things get to the top and you die, so there you are. Shooty, put power up maybe. Okay, let's go through the transition. Okay, so you see we've got 63,500 points playing as Tempest. Now let's play that same level as Space Giraffe. Hang out over here. Shoot these guys here. One of them. There we go. I'm going to have that power up. And I'm going to sit there, all that lot get to the top, which, if you did in Tempest, would be certain death. But here, I'm going to make a special move. As you can see, my score is considerably bigger. And so the thing with this game is you can play it as Tempest, but if you play it as Tempest, then you'll hardly get any points, you certainly won't get any extra lives, and you won't get anywhere on the leaderboards. You need to learn the new techniques, and basically all the point scoring and progression techniques in this game don't even exist in Tempest. And in some ways, this is the anti-Tempest, because in Tempest you had to prevent stuff getting from the top. If stuff got to the top, then that was it, you were dead, unless you had a smart bomb left. Whereas in this, you really want to get stuff up to the top, and then you use this special technique called bulling, which when your ship is powered up, you can just push stuff off the top of the rim. And the more of it you collect up to do, the more points you get. We also, because it's built inside the graphics synthesizer, we can also use the environment as part of the difficulty of the game. There are enemies, for example, in levels 33 upwards, called feedback monsters. And what they do is when you shoot them, I mean, they're pretty innocuous. At first they're innocuous. On later levels they get quite bastardly actually, but first they're innocuous. But what they do is when you're playing a level, they will cause the whole level to flare up. I'll show you. If I go to... That's a little bit disorientating when you start to play, but actually after a while you get used to it and it's just pretty, it's just nice. Well, the whole thing about this game is that Tempest, in original Tempest, Toyo's Tempest, in the same way as Jarvis's Robotron, was a wonderful game, but it was absolutely brutal. I mean, it would kill you stone dead, even if you're good, kill you stone dead in a few minutes. Whereas what I want to allow with these games is much more of a restful experience. Where to me, the act of playing a game should be in and of itself a reward. Just playing it should be fun, so much fun that even if you die, even if you don't get your high score, even if you don't do particularly well, you should always walk away with a smile on your face, because the act of playing itself should be a reward in and of itself. With this, you can just settle in and zone out. I find that when I'm testing it, I'll go to test one level and I'll have sat there and played 20 because I just can't put it down. I just love the feel of it. It's really, really nice. I believe in there being a nice difficulty curve. It should ramp up nicely. I don't believe there should ever be spikes in the difficulty curve, such as you get with like boss levels. I hate boss levels in games. I mean, it's horrible. Those things. You run up against a boss, you just hit a brick wall, and you've got to do the same thing over and over and over and over again, and you just get fed up with it. Bosses get right on my tits. And so there are no bosses in this game. There are some difficulty increments, like level 64, for example. Level 64, if you get to level 64, I guarantee the first time you get there, you'll just go, what the smeg is going on there? And you'll die. I'll show you. Right, check this out. It is bonkers. I mean, it's just... However, you'll notice I didn't die straight away. when you get used to it, it actually makes sense. But the first time you get there, I guarantee you'll just go, oh my God, my poor brain. But the thing is, I mean, even if you die, so I do have spikes in difficulty, but they'll never hold you up. Because even if you die, it doesn't take you back to the start of the level. So even if you died 5 or 6 times, you could still get through the level, because when you die, it doesn't send you back to the start, you keep the progress. So you never hit an absolute brick wall. Okay, you may not get that far afterwards, because you could be down to 1 life, you need to get much further, but you never get that complete and absolute block that you get in some games. I really don't want to do that. And in fact, I want to do the opposite. We're going to have, instead of boss rounds, there'll be a chill-out round. So every few levels, you'll get access to the chill-out round, and you'll just have a chance you'll just do something nice graphically. You'll just be able to wibble the thing around and do something fairly easy, pick up some points, you know, roll a whatever, you know, and chill out. So the whole idea of this is it's to take you to the zone. It's to take you to a place where, I don't know how many of you are shoot-'em-up game players or how many of you have been into that kind of thing. There is a place where you can go where you just lose yourself. It's just you and the game and the whole experience, and just the feedback of being immersed in it becomes so pleasurable. Space Giraffe is designed to take you there, and we certainly hope that it will do. I'll just take you through some of the, I'll just scroll through the actual level select so you can see the variety of environments which we can generate with the Neon engine. This one I like, actually. I don't know if you can see the eyes and that one. The thing is, it looks like Tempest. People are sure to come to this and go, oh my God, it's Tempest 4000. But when they start playing it, they're just going to... Any old Spectrum people remember that keyboard? We're trying to make something which just looks like nothing else, really. I mean, Xbox Live Arcade is good, but I think a lot of the stuff that's on it so far has been a bit... It's either all old emulations, or it's ports of PC casual games, or this and that. And we need something a bit more out there on there.
I love sound effects. Jill, have a listen to this one. That was taught to me by the fella that he wrote all those songs, Guitars and, remember the fella Ray Stevens?
Oh, this level's great. I've got to say this level. This is another one of those just, oh my God levels, the first time we get to it. Anyway, if anyone's got any questions or want to ask me about this, or if anyone wants to play Space Giraffe, and I'm more than happy to assist. Or yeah.
I'll start out with a question then.
Okay.
I swear I did not bring you all the way here just to ask this question, but where's the PC version of Neon?
Where's the PC version? It's right on my PC, actually. No, the PC version there, I mean, we're just getting ready to, we're basically getting ready the online shop in order to sell it. We had a nightmare with it, basically. It's been finished for over a year. And my biz dev guy said there's the possibility of hooking up with really big hardware manufacturer to achieve some kind of distribution. And said, yeah, that's a really good idea. He said, hey, you should hang out and try and do that. And so we said, all right, we'll do that. It was just a nightmare dealing with these people. They kept saying, yes, we'll do it, yes, we'll do it, yes, we'll do it, yes, we'll do it. And then like 9 months down the line, they said, no, we can't do it. And yeah, I was gutted because I don't like having finished code that I haven't released yet. But I figure what we're going to do now is release it at the same time that we release Space Giraffe, because it would be quite nice to be able to say, well, here's Space Giraffe. Hopefully people will be talking about Space Giraffe and all the trippy neon backgrounds, and then we can say, well, actually, here's the tool we used to build that, so we can release that at the same time. Yeah?
So a big fan of Edge magazine. It's just a lot more intelligent than a lot of games journalism. You want to talk about your experience writing for them?
Talk about my experience writing with Edge. Yeah, well, it's been generally good. The only time when we came to loggerheads, as it were, was when they released a supplement in the UK version. I don't know whether it was the same over here, which was just a complete puff piece for the PS3. And I wrote an article which rather took them to task for that, and they got a bit upset about that, and I had to kind of change it back and be a bit more polite. But generally, it's been very good. They just let me write about what I feel like writing. Although they have told me recently that I should try and write more about the actual process of development rather than try and pontificate on the nature of video games in general. Which I was trying to avoid doing at first, because I didn't want my column to be seen as just, being advertising for Space Giraffe. I wanted Space Giraffe to speak for itself rather than be me plugging it in Edge every month. But that's what they want to hear about. Yeah, generally they've been good. Yeah?
Do you feel a bit sort of justified now? People are moving to far more agile processes compared to these sort of very waterfall processes. Do you feel like sort of falling out of your choice of how you go about it?
Well, distribution processes, you mean?
No, actual development of sort of changing things as you go rather than working to a...
Oh yeah, well, I think it's important to work that way. I think that the reason that a lot of games have become so boring and monolithic is because some publishers insist that they only publish successful formulas. So if a game doesn't conform to that, it won't get published, and that's a vicious circle. You end up with about 5 or 6 genres, and that's it. So I think being independent and having new means of distribution, such as online distribution, where you don't have to go through publishers at all, gives people much more chance to be spontaneous and be creative in the development process. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Some people who long for the days when one guy could make a game, they've moved on to the portable formats. I'm just wondering if that's attractive to you at all.
Asking me if I've ever thought of moving on to the portable formats. I did actually do a few things on the Pocket PC, and it was quite nice. And I really did enjoy myself doing that. But at the end of the day, I like doing my big shoot 'em up, so I like doing my trippy stuff, and I think I need a bit more of an immersive environment, immersive play area than I find the small screen a little bit off-putting, because I like stuff to be big and fill the screen, and that on a big plasma is what I want to see, not something on a little tiny thing. But I did have some fun with that, and it is quite a good place for small devs to go. But it's nice that there is stuff emerging that allows smaller devs also to work on the consoles and work on the large scale as well. Okay.
Could you talk a bit more about the difficulty of getting distribution as an independent through online services or other publishers?
The difficulty of getting distribution. Well, I mean, I think half the battle is you've got to be known a bit. You really have to have some work in hand which you can show them, or some history which you can show people to open up the channels. I mean, I guess I was lucky with Xbox Live Arcade, because at the time that they asked me to start working on it, at least 2 of the guys there were really fanatical Tempest 2000 fans, and so they approached me and said, come on, do some stuff for us. Once you're in there, I think it's great. And also, if you can afford to get in there self-funding without actually taking any funding from the people, then that's great as well. We've managed to do that with Space Giraffe basically by not eating for a year. But it does mean that when it comes out, we get a much larger percentage than we would have got if we'd taken funding from Microsoft. But I think in terms of actually getting into the channels in the first place, the only real way to do it is to have something to show people, to have some form of demo where you can go to them and say, look, this is what I've done so far. I mean, XNA would be a good way in, I think, to Xbox Live Arcade. You could do stuff on XNA pretty easily without a lot of investment in development tools. It would get seen, and that would be a good way of getting into Xbox Live Arcade. I don't know what it's like on the Sony side or anything like that, because I haven't really dealt with Sony, but it's probably quite similar. Okay.
Have you looked at the stuff for Cluster Games do with Manifesto games to try and sort of revive shareware on the web? Is that something you've looked into at all?
We haven't really looked into that yet. We may do. I actually bumped into one of the guys from there yesterday when I was at GDC. The thing is, we're now nicely hooked into Xbox Live Arcade. I think that's going to be our thing, but the guy was asking about taking some of our old titles and putting it out that way. I mean, anything which can make shareware more effective has to be a good thing. I mean, anything which basically enables people to reach the market more easily in a way which is actually viable has to be a good thing. I mean, shareware, it can be a bit willy-nilly. When it doesn't work, it can be really disappointing. You can do something really good, and then you said about 3, and it's like, oh, what's the point, you know? So yeah, anything which makes that more effective is a good thing.
Something he said was that there's a lot more people playing puzzle games in the office and those kinds of things.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, the biggest gamer I know is Elaine down the pub. She plays far more games than me or any of my gamer mates, because every single time I go down there, she is sat in front of that machine, she's playing some card game, or she's playing some variant of Puzzle Loop, or she's playing, you know, these little puzzle games, and she must spend 5 or 6 hours a day. I mean, I don't play that much games. I don't know anybody else who plays that much games. Certainly, the casual gamer market has got to be huge. Well, I bet PopCap and those people are coining it in. There must be. Sure.
What's the build, compile, deploy cycle like? When you pushing games to the 360 9, 10, 12 times a day, or do you do most of your development on the PC and then push to the Xbox once a day?
No, I mean, basically, you've got the dev kit hooked up to the PC, you compile on the PC, and then it compiles and then just copies the exe over to the Xbox, and it runs on the Xbox. It's not running on the PC side at all. So every time you compile, a new version appears on the Xbox.
Have you seen the screensaver electric sheep that running a lot of your
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, it's really nice. I like the fact that it also mentions sheep, even though they don't look very sheep related. But yeah, it's very, very pretty. I do like that kind of stuff.
So I know Microsoft's been talking about bringing some of the Xbox Live or the Live Arcade games over to Vista through some download services. Is there any chance of seeing Space Giraffe on a PC through that?
Yeah, I think there's every chance of that happening. I mean, one way or another, there will be a Space Giraffe version for the PC. We're planning on doing our own port, but I think it's quite likely that Microsoft will ask us to do it for Vista Live Arcade or whatever.
Multiplayer?
Multiplayer. Well, I don't know. Maybe not for Space Giraffe. I think Space Giraffe is Space Giraffe, but Space Giraffe 2 maybe. You know, I mean, that's something which we want to move into. I mean, getting all this stuff actually working first time out on the Xbox 360 and getting it to play nice, even with just like the live leaderboard stuff, there's a load of infrastructure there which really needs to be built up. And we can't really spend much more time on development of this now. We've got to finish it off and get out the door if we're going to be cost effective. But having done a lot of work to get this going, that's a lot of work we don't have to do on future games, and that may give us time to actually start implementing stuff like online multiplayer, which would be fun.
Can I play some Space Giraffe?
Absolutely you can, yeah, sure. Right, I should explain pretty much how it works. I'll just take you briefly through the tutorial. I'll show you it first. Please stop tutorial. I'll just play it off to demonstrate. Okay, see that white glowing line across the grid? That's your power zone. Imagine the whole grid is a power meter, yeah? As you shoot things and do various things, the power zone extends. If you don't shoot, then it drops away. Right, now the whole essence of Space Giraffe is that when the power zone is extended, stuff that's on the rim, you can push off. So as long as that's there, it doesn't really matter about stuff getting to the top. So you can let it accumulate, and the more that it accumulates, the more points you get to push it off. However, if you let it close down, and get captured. I'll show you how you actually do get caught. Then they will grab your hoof. These things are power-ups. If you grab those, it also extends the power zone. And you see, each one you grab, you see you've got two things on tails there now. Those are jump pods. If you jump, it not only jumps you, but it fills up the whole power zone. So you can use that to your advantage. So I'll go over here. To do that trick which I did on level 2, you let them all come up to the top. Don't worry that you've got no power zone. Then you simply jump, fill it up, and then go. When you get the move, that's when you increase the bonus multiplier. Anyway, I'll stop playing. And do you want to play the tutorial, or we'll start straight in? It's up to you.
So
basically,
move the giraffe.
Move the giraffe. When the power zone is extended, you can aim the shots with that as well.
Okay.
That's smart bomb, and that's jump. This trigger here is jump.
Which is fire?
It fires continuously.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's
Really simple.
There's a few levels like that.
I think Space Camels. I used to play those. It took us forever to work out which level. This tiny little village, very sheltered. No idea what it was. It was like, makes it, yeah, it can't be cigarettes. Why would you go down like this?
So I heard the Tempest 2000 music. You actually have to have the rights to that.
What, the Tempest 2000? Well, no, that's just a remix that a friend of ours has done, but we've got various people contributing music. However, I don't know who even owns the rights to Tempest 2000 music now, because I mean, obviously there are people who own the rights to Atari who have the rights to Tempest, but Tempest 2000? Where did that go, Yeah, and it's been cleared by Jimmy Courty, who actually got in touch with him and said, do you mind if we use that? He said, no. He said, he asserts no copyright over anything from the KLF. Go ahead and use it. Yeah, you really need to read their wiki page there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. Okay, they're firing now, so I have to be careful. Yeah.
Things like that. You've been burned a few times.
Well, I mean, the Xbox is go away, isn't it? And also, the thing is, if you do Xbox 360 development, the basic PC version pretty much falls out anyway, so you've got...
What about the Nintendo Wii controllers? Like, any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to work on the Wii. I mean, obviously, it's a question of finding time, really, and also persuading Nintendo to give us a kit, but I think we could do that. I'm sure Nintendo would be quite happy to.
Some people actually make flash games before.
Yeah. They still owe me a packet of Rizlas and 3 Bensons for that. They haven't paid me yet. I don't. I haven't heard anything more from the guys. I mean, I hope they do it because that would be tremendously funny.
Yeah. It was my favorite game when I was 12.
Yeah, bless it. Yeah, I mean, basically, it's a shame that the Nuon, I think, came to market about a year too late. I think if they'd been a year earlier, things might have been a bit different. But yeah, I mean, it's still a very good DVD player. But in terms of being a game machine, I mean, the thing is, unless you wanted to write anything more than very simple games, you really had to understand how that shit worked. It was